the gateway to Gardner, the beautiful fields that you see as you come in with overgrown grass that haven't been mowed in months. What I want to say is that there's things on here, contractor's yard and storage. That's storage, and that's actually would be another thing that would be impacted. Hotels and motels are Zone 3, and I'll go to the map, but if I'm not mistaken in reading the map, that whole area all the way up to the freeway is a Zone 2, which would have to do a special permit for a hotel or a motel. So if you go to the next slide, please. Just want to show you, for those of you who maybe haven't made it down Gardner Road and don't know exactly what we're talking about. Well, actually, I'm sorry, I have one more thing. I want to show on the land use permit, we wouldn't be here for the rezone if the land use permit would have been taken care of appropriately. And if you notice on the land use permit, a used car lot is something that is able to be obtained by a used car. There's nowhere on there that says it's temporary, it's permanent. There's nothing written in here whatsoever, one way or the other. But what it does say is around permits revoked is that a permit may be revoked by the code administrator anytime prior to the completion, right? So we were given and issued a permit by the city. And they had from September 10th to the time they walked on that property on the 25th and did their walkthrough to change their mind and revoke it and deny it. We, of course, then could have gone through an appeal process, but there was that 15-day time span for someone to do their homework and before they physically came out to make sure that it was accurate. So if you could just go to the next slide. So here's the visual. On the left-hand side, might be your right-hand side, how you're looking at it, but on the left-hand side, if you'll enter again, please, can you enter again? The left-hand side is Zone C2. That's where our car lot is. And if you can hit enter again, on the right-hand side, directly across the street is Zone 3. So we're not talking about the gateway to Gardner is an area where there is no Zone 3, where there is no possibility for a new car dealership to come in and also sell used cars. You're literally 4 lanes apart from where we would be able to apply for a permit on a C3 zone to have our used car lot. You can go to the next slide. This is some notes from the first meeting that we had on April 23rd, and this is where we left with the original recommendation was to look at changing the text and the verbiage from new to new and used. And that's really kind of what that is in a nutshell. If you want to go to the next slide. We then came back to another meeting on May 28th. At that time, the staff came back and recommended that they don't want to do a text amendment, that there were the similar concerns that Mr. Hall brought up today, as all of the things that he showed on his slide, that they were concerned about the long-term impact to Gardner, what that could do. Now, just for the record, there's a permit process that has to be gone through, no matter what the zone is. The city has the right to deny it at the time of motion, so on and so forth. So just because it would be rezoned for Zone 3 does not mean the city moving forward after we've done what's right for our business to get us into a place where we can move across the street and buy the $1 million property for an acre and put our lot there would be something that they could still have the right to deny. So just because they changed the zone doesn't mean they'd have to approve it moving forward. We have other Zone C3s throughout the city of Gardner. So at that point, we walked away, and I believe Mr. Hall at that time recognized in that meeting that they had found a process that would have allowed for a temporary 2-year permit. Where that came from, I'm still trying to find it in the ordinances, but apparently we were able to apply for that. It wasn't known at the time. Had it been, that would have been an alternative to apply for versus the rezone, but we were told that the rezone was the only option. We left that meeting again, tabled, no resolution, and here we are today. So I want to show a couple things, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. Just want to talk about the businesses in the city of Gardner. We're a small town, field community with a lot of small businesses, and we have no auto businesses in our community whatsoever. I've just listed the top 6 that came up when I Googled in Olathe, and there are many, many more. Those taxes, that money, people who are buying cars of a used car have to go to Olathe. There is no option here in town. If you don't have a car and you don't have a vehicle, you got to find somebody to take you there. I can't tell you how many people have walked on our lot to purchase a vehicle because they don't have transportation. We don't have that option if we don't have an auto dealership here in town. You can go to the next slide. Couple things on additional information. We have sold 48 cars since we opened, since our first sale in December, or in January, from January. We've had 48 satisfied customers. We have had no complaints filed against us that we've been made aware of. We've had 24 of the 48 customers actually come and purchase vehicles from us outside of Gardner, which has given them exposure to Gardner. Many of them didn't even know, had never been here before. We also take all of our cars through Big O Tires. We do everything we can through local businesses here in Gardner to keep the money in the city of Gardner. From March to June, we've had limited inventory because we are in a very unknown status with what the city's going to decide to do, and we have a lot of money on the line, and we can't just dump 15 cars tomorrow if the city decides to deny. So we're in kind of a catch-22 of keeping enough cars on the lot to continue to help the consumers that are coming in to purchase cars, but not get so over our head that we are going to lose, well, we would lose everything if we had to shut down, but we would lose a lot. We were told by Mike that if we wanted to apply for the special permit that he was talking about, which he said at that time we couldn't do both the rezone and the permit, was something that we can consider. However, there's a lot of buts along with that. And one of those buts is, if it is approved, chances are you'll only be able to house 4 cars. We have chosen not to drop the rezone because we want to be able to keep at least 10 to 15 cars on the lot at any given time in order to run a business. You cannot run a car lot with 4 automobiles. Currently, we have about $133,000 in inventory sitting on our lot, and again, we'd like to expand, but we are being very cautious about what we do with our next steps. There's been no issues as far as safety, cars coming in and out. There have been no accidents at that site on the property, and we have one of the biggest gas station lots next to Shell. We've been a contributing business member to draw more people to Gardner, as I talked about before. By granting the rezone, we have the ability to keep our business open, our livelihood going. We have done everything asked of us by the city for consideration based, and we're asking for consideration based on the city's mistake, not ours. We've complied with everything by law that we were required to do to have our business. As you can see from the earlier slide, the city actually had from 9/25 to 12/12 when we sold our first car to figure out their mistake. The complaint came, for the record, because the person was at the original meeting that we had, is the landowner that wants to purchase that last piece of property. It's not going to happen, and there is not a large number of complaints. There is one complaint. If you can go to the next slide. Just real quick, some visuals. As Mr. Hall showed, this is our lot. As you can see, there's a wide open, there's 2 driveways. We have cars parked on the left, and there's enough room for at least 2 cars to go through at any given time. On the other row on the front. If you go to the next slide. We don't park any cars on the right-hand side. If you can go to the next. On the picture on the left, as you can see, there's plenty of room around the gas pumps. There's no traffic congestion. The first picture on the right is that beautiful entry lot when you come into the gateway of Gardner, which is overgrown weeds and has not a lot of any visual appeal as far as I'm concerned as a citizen of Gardner. Can you go to the next slide? Here are a couple of gateway eyesores also that are closer to the housing of Aspen Creek, which is directly across the street from this house. The other house is overgrown grass right by the Shell gas station. If you can go to the next slide, please. There's also this house directly across the street from Aspen Creek, which houses all kinds of equipment, hay, all kinds of unkept stuff in the front yard. And I think my husband wanted to say a couple things.
How you guys doing?
Say your name.
Tyrone Jones, 18336 Mimosa Court, Gardner, Kansas.